All right, we're going to start today our brand new unit, which is on poetry. And we like to call poetry painting pictures with our words. Poems are awesome because you can express yourself in a unique way, and poetry doesn't have to follow the same rules as traditional essay style writing. Poetry can be short, it can be long, it can rhyme, it doesn't have to follow the conventions of punctuation. So I love poetry for all of those things. So we're going to use poetry to help us spark a little creativity within our writing. By the end of the unit, we hope that you will be able to identify and apply a lot of different poetry craft techniques, that you will be able to read poems with figurative language and interpret that, and maybe add some to your own writing, that you'll be able to analyze and recognize the patterns that we see in different poems, and that you'll be able to take all of that knowledge of poetry and poetic language and see if you can find it in the novels that we're reading. Our first poem is called How to Write a Poem. And How to Write a Poem, let me go back on there. How to Write a Poem is by the poet Kwame Alexander. He wrote Crossover, which is a book that we have in our library. He wrote The Undefeated as well. So this poem is a simple poem called How to Write a Poem. It says, hush, grab a pencil, some paper, spunk, let loose your heart, raise your voice. What if I have many voices? Let them dance together, twist and turn like best friends in a maze till you find your way to that one true word or two. So now we're going to look at the different parts of that poem and you're going to answer some questions. All right, so the first question is, reread the first 6 lines of the poem. Restate in your words, what do you think the poet is telling the reader to do? Hush, grab a pencil, some paper, spunk, let loose your heart, raise your voice. That word spunk means like courageous and brave. Like we often think of the heroes in like Disney movies, they have a lot of spunk. So what do you think they're telling you to do? The next question is, who is speaking on the 7th line? And why do you think it's in italics, that slanted print? What if I have many voices? Who is asking that question? And why do you think that the author, the poet, wrote it in italics? Next up, what does the poet compare many voices to in these lines? So what's the literal comparison? What does he say they are like, using a simile? And then what do you think that means? He says, let them dance together, twist and turn like best friends in a maze. So what are they compared to? And what do you think he means by that? What's he trying to say? Lastly, this question, Mrs. Hammond and I actually talked about, what does many voices, when the poet has that line, what if I have many voices? What does that mean to you? Mrs. Hammond thought that it means when you have a lot of different ideas in your head about what to write about and trying to figure out which one to choose. I thought it was more like when you have a lot of different views on a topic. Like I can say that cats are the best animal, but I can also appreciate that dogs are cute. We don't have to pick just one side in an argument. So what does the idea, the concept of what if I have many voices mean to you? Do you agree with what one of us said and why? Or do you have an idea of your own about that? I hope that you'll take some time to really think about poetry and the poetic language we had here. I want you now to go back to the poem. Now that you've answered those questions, go back to the poem. The slideshow is in Google Classroom, and take out your sketch notes paper. And I want you to see if you can find those elements of author's style that we talked about earlier in the week within that poem, and jot them down in your sketch notes and be ready to share once we all come back at the end of class.